The moment you answer a simple question, the argument is already over, and you've already lost. We all like to think that a conversation is this open, free exchange of ideas, right? But the reality is, it can be a lot more strategic. Why is it that answering a question like, "Are you going to be difficult today?" leaves you completely trapped, no matter what you say? Well, that's the whole paradox of conversational entrapment. It's that moment when someone uses your own honesty, your own politeness, to lock you into a reality that just isn't yours. So the real question is, how do we spot this trap? And more importantly, how do we get out of it? Let's break it down. Have you ever felt that? That feeling you're backed into a corner by a question that seems totally innocent. You answer it honestly, you're trying to be cooperative, but then all of a sudden you find yourself defending a position you never even held in the first place. This isn't just some clever debate trick. No, this is a deep dive into the architecture of a linguistic trap, where a question isn't really a question. It's a cage designed to take your autonomy hostage. So to really get this, we're going to take it all apart, piece by piece. We'll start by defining what this trap even is, then we'll look at the hidden rules of the game. We'll get into the nuts and bolts of how it works and the psychology that's driving the whole thing. And maybe most importantly, we're going to end with a really practical guide on how you can take back control and just refuse to play.
Okay, let's get right to the core of the problem. You see, a healthy question, it's all about trying to understand something. But a weaponized question, that's about containment. And that's the big shift we have to learn to recognize. That moment when a simple inquiry turns into an act of psychological warfare. This question right here is a perfect example of the trap. Just think about it for a second. If you say no, what happens? You've just agreed that you could have been difficult, and now you're on the defensive, trying to prove you're a good person. And if you say yes, well, you just confirm their accusation, game over. Or what about a question like, why are you getting so emotional? Any answer you give, whether you're defending your feelings or denying them, it accepts their frame, that your emotions are wrong and need to be justified. See? You've lost before you even begin. And this is the really insidious part. This whole system only works because most of us, well, we want to be polite. We want things to be harmonious. We want to answer questions and have a good faith conversation. But in this kind of dynamic, that very instinct, your desire to be a reasonable person, it gets weaponized. It becomes the exact lever they pull to lock you into their reality, not yours.
Okay, so this isn't just random chaos. It's actually a system. It's got a clear architecture, it has predictable rules. And once you see the blueprint, you can start to take it apart. The official term for this is choice funneling, and it's a real documented thing in behavioral science. It's not just some theory. You see it all the time in high-pressure sales, in aggressive legal questioning, and in really destructive personal relationships. The controller basically acts like a gatekeeper. They decide what you're allowed to talk about, and by doing that, they just completely sidestep your ability to think critically. And this really shows the fundamental difference. In a real open dialogue, the goal is for everyone to understand each other. People are equals, exploring an idea together. But in what we're calling logical containment, the goal is totally different. It's frame dominance. It's not a discussion, it's a takeover. The whole premise shifts from a conversation between equals to a power dynamic where you become a prisoner of their logic.
So what makes us so vulnerable to this stuff?
Well, it usually boils down to two core beliefs that we've all been taught to accept. First up is the cooperation trap. That's that little voice in your head, that social pressure that says if you don't answer their question, you're the one being rude. And then there's the binary trap, that deep-seated feeling that if someone gives you option A or option B, you have to pick one. You never even stop to think, hey, what about option C? So the really crucial thing to get here is how all these pieces come together. It's not just one move, it's a sequence. It's a clear, repeatable three-step process that's designed to just systematically take your perspective apart. Let's dig in. So here it is, the sequence. The presuppositional hook, the double bind, and the logical lock-in. Each step is designed to build right on top of the last one, pulling you deeper and deeper into the controller's world until it feels like there's no way out. It's basically a progression from a loaded question to a forced choice to a final logical trap. Step one is the hook. This is that loaded question, the one that presupposes something about you. Like, have you stopped being so irresponsible? Or, so you're admitting you didn't even consider my feelings? See, the trap isn't in what you say back. The trap is the question itself. The second you engage with it on its terms, you've already validated their hidden assumption. You've agreed to their premise without even realizing it. And here's the kicker that makes that final step, the logical lock-in, so dang powerful. It's a psychological principle called commitment bias.
Once our brain makes a choice, even a forced one, between two terrible options, it really wants to stick with it. We have this deep, deep need to be consistent. So instead of questioning the trap itself, our brain actually starts justifying why we're in it. We stop looking for a way out, and we start defending the cage. It's a pretty wild flaw in our own thinking. Now that we know how this thing works, we've got to ask why. I mean, what motivates somebody to communicate like this? And what is it about us that makes us so susceptible to it? Getting the psychology of both the controller and the target is really the key to diffusing this whole thing. This right here is the core motivation. It's not about finding the truth. It's not about winning an argument based on facts. It's about achieving complete control, sovereignty, by controlling the frame of the conversation. If they can force you to only operate within the questions they allow, they don't have to worry about your answers. The game's already been won. And what this does is create this really stark power imbalance. On one side, you've got the controller, who is driven by this deep need for frame dominance. And on the other side, you've got the target, whose vulnerability is often just their own admirable desire for a little social harmony. The controller uses your wish for a smooth, pleasant conversation to impose their rigid, controlling system. And manipulators can get away with this because, well, our brains are kind of wired for it. It's called cognitive funneling, and it's a real biological tendency. When we're put under pressure, our focus just narrows. We only see the choices that are put right in front of our face, and we completely stop looking for the exit that's just off to the side. This isn't some character flaw on your part, it's a feature of our neurology that can be used against us. Okay, enough about the problem. Let's get to the good stuff, the solution. How do you actually break free? Well, the answer isn't about learning to play the game better. It's about refusing to play the game at all. It's about taking the conversation up a level with the strategy we're going to call the metacommunicative defense. Your defense is a really simple but incredibly powerful two-step protocol. It's all about shifting your mindset. You stop being a player reacting inside their game, and you become an observer watching the game from the outside. The first step is to do what's called a frame audit to see what's really going on. And the second is to execute a metacommunicative refusal to take back control. The frame audit is basically your internal alarm system. You know that feeling of being cornered, of being defensive? That's not just a feeling, my friend. That is data. It's a signal that a frame is being forced on you. So you just pause, and you ask yourself this one critical question. What is this person assuming about me right now with this question? That single act of asking yourself that question shifts you from being a victim to being an analyst. And that brings us to step 2, the metacommunicative refusal. You use a phrase exactly like this one. Now notice what's happening here. You're not answering their loaded question. You're not choosing between their option A or option B. You are calling out the structure of the trap itself. You are metacommunicating. You're communicating about the communication. So to the question, are you going to be difficult today? Your response isn't yes or no. It's, I don't accept the premises of that question. You're not playing their game, you're pointing out that the game itself is broken. That phrase is a complete answer. And all of this leads us to the most empowering idea of all. This isn't about learning clever comebacks. It's about a fundamental shift in how you see your rights within any conversation. It's about reclaiming your own mental and emotional sovereignty. So let's really lock in these key takeaways, because these are the principles that will set you free. First, choice is a total illusion if someone else picked all the options for you. Second, your internal reality, your feelings, your perspective, that is not up for debate. It's yours. Third, and this one is so important, you are under zero obligation to answer a question that is specifically designed to take away your agency. And finally, it is absolutely okay to be seen as difficult by someone who is trying to build a cage for you out of your own words. We'll end on this. It's a final thought for you to take with you. Now that you can see the architecture of this trap, start looking for it. Pay attention to the conversations you have in your past and in your present. And just ask yourself, which of the questions you've been asked weren't really questions at all?